the worst hire at the time, Kiffin, Jones, Dooley, Pruitt at the time, and where would Schiano have ranked in there before we get to the most meaningful games of 2023 that include 2 Tennessee games, and I'm talking from a nationwide perspective. So if you rated those at the time, I'll give you mine first. I thought Dooley was the worst hire, losing record at La Tech. I thought that Pruitt was the second worst hire. I thought that Kiffin was the third worst hire. And then I would go to Jones, who I thought would at least get Tennessee solidly to 9 or 10 wins. I didn't know if he'd get beyond that. Kiffin, there was a question mark. There was a Raiders issue. Dooley, I mentioned the losing record that he had coming in. And Pruitt, I thought, from what I heard in coaching circles, that was just the best they could do at the time because of the Schiano fiasco and everything that was going on. So how would you rate those as far as the worst hires in recent memory?
So you have me debating with myself between, because I'm with you on 1 and 4. Butch Jones. Now, by the way, for people
don't debate yourself on YouTube. That'll get us kicked off.
For people who are questioning,
Caleb and I are master debaters. Go ahead. There's nothing wrong with being a master debater. It just means you're good with words.
Okay. So where I was going with, and I want to say this to our listeners real quick. The quality of a hire and the quality of the coach are not the same thing. I think Butch Jones is the worst coach of the 4. He was the best hire of the 4 on paper because 6 years, 4 championships. You couldn't ignore that on paper when you were looking at who was available. I'm struggling between Pruitt and Kiffin. I would say Kiffin was a worse hire than Pruitt because of the limitations of the availabilities, because Brian Kelly was available when Tennessee hired Kiffin. And Pruitt, the person who was available when Tennessee hired Pruitt was Lane Kiffin, funny enough. And Fulmer was never going to hire Lane Kiffin. That wasn't about to happen. So I will say, though, the most obviously bad one was Derek Dooley. And I have to bring this up because, there's an issue with colleges with legacy admissions where people get admitted to college because of who their dad is, despite that when they have no merit on their own. And I have a huge problem with that. Well, Derek Dooley was a legacy hire. Honestly, he was hired because his dad was a Hall of Fame coach. And I understand people's feelings about the Supreme Court with affirmative action a few weeks ago, because I understand the issue, but legacy is just as annoying. If you're going to get hired because of who your dad is and not because of who you are and your merits, that's just as bad. And quite honestly, Dave, you told me this story and I didn't know it. You said the boosters took the power away from Mike Hamilton and hired Derek Dooley, pretty much.
No question. I don't know that he knew who Derek Dooley was before he was interviewed.
So I have a theory on this. The lead booster at the time was failed businessman, historically unintelligent Jimmy Haslam. And I think a lot of
Are you talking Big Jim or Jimmy?
Jimmy.
Okay, because I'm a fan of Big Jim. I think he's the perfect booster. I think he sits aside, he gives his okay if you ask him, but Jimmy's a different matter altogether.
Yes, exactly. Yes, Jimmy was running the program like a feudal lord during that time, and so Jimmy Haslam is a historical failure in everything, but he's a trust fund baby. I think he saw himself in Derek Dooley. And because
that's throwing hot heat. Never thought about that.
Yes, I think he saw himself because Jimmy Haslam so badly wants to prove he's successful at something. He's successful at nothing. But I think that he really wanted somebody like Derek Dooley, the son of a Hall of Fame coach, to work out. Now, I still am more of a defender of Derek Dooley, the job he did, than you are, because I would take Dooley over Butch Jones any day of the week as a head coach.
Well, now, in retrospect, my list would change. In retrospect, the top coaches, in my opinion, would be Kiffin, Dooley, and then I would actually go Pruitt over Butch because I think so little of him as a moral person or lack thereof.
I think little of Butch.
Some stuff I've been told that I haven't even shared. I've shared a lot with you off the record, but I would have Butch last, even though he had the most success at Tennessee.
I would have Butch last too. I would easily have Butch last.
Surprises me. Well, you said that. I like that.
Yeah. Well, again, he's unintelligent and he's a sociopath. I mean, he's
Other than that,
other than that, I mean, it's so yeah. No, I think Dooley was actually the smartest. Kiffin was probably the smartest of the four, but Dooley was actually pretty smart. There were just some issues he had, but yeah, no, I think on its face that was a terrible hire. And here's what drove me crazy about the hire. You talked about Kippy Brown. That made the most sense, mainly because it was so late in the game. Just hire an interim and then wait till next year, and where you can actually get a better collection of coaches that are going to be, because everybody was hired at the time. Or Kevin Sumlin was on the list, and I don't think Kevin Sumlin's a great coach now, but on its face, on paper, Kevin Sumlin was a better coach than Derek Dooley. There was no question at the time. And so, but the boosters wanted Derek Dooley because the lead, and I don't know about the other boosters at Tennessee. Maybe some of them are like Jimmy Haslam, where their daddies were rich and their entire success is because of their daddy. And Jimmy Haslam's whole life is because of his daddy. If it wasn't because of his daddy, he'd be one of those people selling roses on the street corner.
It's interesting. So what about, would Jimmy have been a big fan? Was he a big fan of the Kiffin hire then? Because that's a legacy kind of sort of hire.
Well, okay, here, yeah. Oh, I did not like the Kiffin hire because of that. But the thing with the Kiffin hire was Kiffin's legacy hire was, not only am I my father's son, I could bring my father to come coach for us. So it wasn't like Derek Dooley was going to get Vince Dooley to come coach for Tennessee. And so,
yep. There you go. That's why Caleb Calhoun is a master debater. All right, so Tennessee with a hooker. Oh, wow. What are you even paying for in that regard? All right, so let's get to the two most meaningful games on Tennessee's schedule, which also happen to rank as two of the most meaningful games in the entire college football slate. I'm not talking just SEC. I'm not talking just Tennessee. These are games that have huge meaning that just this time a year ago might not have made this list because everybody expected Georgia and Alabama just to pound Tennessee. So before we get to those games and where they rank on the most meaningful games, I want to remind you that Craft Treats is phenomenal for your pet. Craft Treats has just the chill pills that will absolutely change your pet's lives. They have CBD derivatives. They will help with the digestive issues, the arthritis, also help with anxiety. That's crafttreats.com. Go to crafttreats.com. Use the exclusive code Off the Hook. That is Off the Hook. crafttreats.com.